And it's really curious that why have we not gotten past the pandemic and this feeling of loneliness? And if anything, it's getting worse.
The higher success takes us, definitely the lonelier you feel.
Being lonely is not by choice.
In some cultures, 17 kids having one bathroom.
Right.
One
Yes.
bathroom.
Yes, absolutely.
And nobody's complaining and saying like, oh, I need my space.
How I grew up was just playing on the streets. But parents are so scared now because they're fearful of the other.
It used to be that you need double income. I think now you need 4 incomes.
This boundary in our heads that we go, I can't ask for help. I don't want to reach out. But if you flip it, if I ask you for help, how do you respond?
Excited.
Exactly. It's so nice to sit down and relax and chat with you. And I'm wondering how you're doing, because I just heard this interesting stat the other day that 50% of CEOs are experiencing loneliness, at least 50%. How's that resonate with you?
Oh, it does resonate quite a lot. It's typically, in my perspective, there are many additional pieces to account for being a woman entrepreneur, woman CEO, and also being an immigrant has a lot also to add into the pot. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I think one of the things I've been noticing is the more I dive into success in work, and the more walls I am building around myself because of the efficiency that is required to be successful makes you kind of spare your energy for that. And so you learn to justify solitude. You learn to tune in to see where within yourself you can comfortably enjoy. You almost become your own internal advisor because of the challenges and the storms that you have to navigate through. So yeah, I absolutely resonate with that. And then you even start grieving alone because entrepreneurship it's not linear. There is a lot of challenges and sometimes daily, exhilarating challenges that require you to think very fast and very efficient. So you are constantly regrouping, but you also create this unrealistic self-realization that means you are enough, that makes you think you're enough to sit with your own problems. The norm, which eventually we need to undo, is the higher success takes us, definitely the lonelier you feel, unless of course you do something intentional about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm so curious about this loneliness that you said that you've experienced and are experiencing. Tell me a little bit more about that, and then tell me what you're doing about it, because I think you're doing some great stuff.
My challenge is always and has been is making the boundary between how I am managing my business versus what my home sanctuary looks like.
Are they different, or do you want them to be different?
Yes and no. Very good question, because I want them to be different in a sense where one doesn't contaminate the other with its own issues. So for instance, if my workday was tough and was very stressful, given the fact that I'm a single woman, it's very important to me to create that safe haven where I come home and leave all of that out at the door. The part that still is the part that's really exhausting is keeping them separate.
Completely. And you and I have been fortunate that we've been running some sessions with groups of women about taking that time for reflection and vulnerability and over a cup of tea.
Over a cup of tea. But then I would love to know, like, for instance, I know that, Denise, you've worked with many communities in Burlington and area. In fact, you and I met at a round table as friends for the very first time. But what I would love to know is, how is that really, is that a distributed evenly kind of a situation in terms of different demographics? What are your findings for social isolation?
Intersectionality is always key. The more intersecting issues that you have, probably the more lonely you feel, regardless of what your background is. But what we know since the pandemic is everybody's experiencing loneliness. Over 50% of the population is reporting feeling lonely at some point in the last year. And it hasn't, we thought maybe after the pandemic that might come back up, that we might have come out of that loneliness phase that we were all experiencing through social isolation, but we haven't gotten there yet. And it's really curious that why have we not gotten past the pandemic and this feeling of loneliness? And if anything, it's getting worse. And what can we do to really bring that? And it's all demographics. We used to talk about seniors in isolation or older adults in isolation, but we're seeing it's rampant with young people. We're seeing it rampant in all ages and stages, to the point that we open the conversation that 50% of CEOs are feeling lonely. Everybody is experiencing loneliness. And there's one thing to be lonely, and there's a different thing to be in solitude. And you and I've had that conversation before, where solitude is something I freely choose. I need to be by myself to reflect, to sit with my tea, to contemplate. But being lonely is not by choice. People feel very isolated. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, it's across all ages and stages of life. But the more intersectionality that there is, the lonelier you feel. And we're just not getting through it yet. Now, we're trying to do things to get through it. And I think you and I have been trying our hardest for the last 10 years to break down this social isolation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we took a lot of steps backwards with the pandemic, but I think we're starting to see some momentum build up again.
Do you think the pandemic sort of kind of shed light onto the social isolation, but per se worsened it?
Yes, absolutely. Right? People were feeling terrible during the pandemic because they were not socially connecting. Like you and I just sitting here right now, making eye contact.
Yeah.
We're both getting something very mutually beneficial out of this conversation. The eye contact alone, face to face, is doing something physiologically in our body. You couldn't get that through Zoom or Team or whatever it was. We missed that.
It was exhausting.
It was very exhausting. You couldn't read the body language. We couldn't have a conversation per se. Like we can jump in on each other's conversation right now and have no problem with it. But on Team and Zoom, it just wasn't the same way. You're raising your hand. You're taking your time to say something. But there is actually physiologically, as we look into each other's eyes, the feelings, the bond and the feelings that are happening within our body physically right now are producing so much dopamine, serotonin. Like we are getting great vibes from each other, and you can only get that face to face.
We've always talked about the culture of my space. It's been a thing for a long time. You know, give me my space. I need my space. I need time. You know, and so many cultures, global cultures, are the absolute opposite. There's no such thing as a space. There is, in fact, a communal culture where you don't even know what my space really means, because you could be in some cultures 17 kids having one bathroom. One bathroom.
Yes, absolutely.
And nobody's complaining and saying like, oh, I need my space. Don't touch my shirt. Touch my shirt. In fact, you might wear it, but make sure you wash it and put it back where it was supposed to be hanging.
Feels like a very personal conversation that might have happened this morning.
There you go. But do you really think there's a learning for us as Canadians to sort of really maybe borrow some things from different cultures and bring it home?
Absolutely. I think that's what we're missing right now, is this communal feel.
Yeah.
This interdependence, right? In North America and North American culture, we're very much about independence and having our own space and place and excelling for ourselves, versus many other cultures where we're very interdependent and we rely on each other. And we just do not have that in the North American culture. And I think that's where you're seeing some of this epidemic come from. And releasing that that vulnerability, like you said earlier, and saying, you know what, I need you as much as you need me, and relying on each other is such a valuable piece. But we're very fearful of that in this culture.
The my space, the your space, but also really transferring or applauding that. Applauding the ones who are self-sufficient, who can live alone and happily ever after, who can go to work and just cocoon in their own bedrooms. And we think like that is really strength, or that's how we identify as non-dependency. So we promote it as independent versus dependency. Correct. What is your take about that?
Well, I agree with you. And I just reflecting even on raising my own children, right? It was all about, okay, how quickly can you learn to walk? How quickly can you learn to read? How quickly can you learn to do your own laundry? Like, we're trying to create these little independent people as quickly as we can, because that's what we value in society right now. That's where we're really focused on, is creating these self-independent little beings to move forward. And I can't help but think, should we be focusing on more the community and bringing people together and relying on each other? And we just have this boundary in our heads that we go, I can't ask for help. I don't want to reach out. I'm showing that I'm not able to be independent, which is such a strong value in the society.
For instance, when I rely on or ask for help, I actually feel depressed.
To ask for help.
Wow. So, and again, it's the harm of teaching ourselves.
Right.
Teaching ourselves, we're like, oh, you know what? Feeling a burden.
But if you flip it, if I ask you for help, how do you respond?
Excited.
Exactly.
Very.
There's a whole
self-made.
Story.
Yeah. It's all. I think it's all self-made darkness. To be precise, is where you are assuming that the norm is to be self-sufficient.
Right.
As you, of course, we all know that the cost of living is exponentially higher than it used to be. It used to be that you need double income. I think now you need 4 incomes, if that makes sense. So that means each one of you holds 2 jobs at a minimal.
Which is insane. Absolutely insane. Yeah.
And so things like sitting with your tea and community and building community is a luxury at that level, because you're actually busy in paying for that hockey fee or that soccer fee for the mental health, or putting that food on the table or getting the heat going. What are you finding in terms of that, like cost of living?
It's a massive impact on so many people. It's just creating even more isolation for people. They don't have time or energy to get out into community, which is what they really probably need as an antidote to how they're feeling. But they just don't have the capacity to do so. The impact right now of the cost of living and the expectation people have is just driving people further and further into isolation. And it's hard. It is really hard to break that cycle, when really what they really need to do is depend on others, to reach out, to support each other. I often think of those stories where we talk with different social housing units, and it's when the moms can actually get together and rely on each other, right? Where they go, okay, I'll pick up the kids after school today, so you can work that extra shift. I'll feed them dinner. Next week, you're going to do this for me. That they actually barter with social time to be able to do the things that they need to do, and not at a cost, if that makes sense. So it's a time bank, as it were, that they're sharing and trading resources, but not at a financial cost. And they're creating community at the same time. So we're starting to see that more and more, but there's like to your point, there's a strong vulnerability there to say, I need help. Can you help me? Let me reach out to you and ask if we can work out a system that will allow us both to thrive and meet both needs. Not easily done. I totally understand that. But when people do that, they're creating so much more opportunity for themselves. They're getting agency over their situation. And they're starting to build a community.
We know hands down that you build a community, or you find one that's existing that offers you the belonging you're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are other extra layers that really become a barrier, i.e., if you're an immigrant, for example, to go out to the community center is altogether a step.
It's a
huge step, as we talked about.
Totally. Yeah.
Versus someone who's grown up, but still the challenges are universal. You've got all these hormonal changes, you've got financial constraints, you've all of the above. It's raining down. What do you think, to your expertise in with life coaching, and also someone who's heavily invested in your experience with recreational and community building, where do you see a solution for?
Well, it's multi-pronged, right?
Yeah.
So there is a component where the individual needs to actually take those steps themselves. But are there enabling forces that help them? Absolutely. And I think that's what we've been able to do in my work in Burlington anyways, is try to create programs that encourage people to come forward and meet each other. And as simple as that Love My Neighborhood program has been immensely popular.
Oh, love that.
In Burlington, right? We would give the people $500 to meet their neighbors, have a party. We'll give you $500. Just have a party so you can meet your neighbors. And we know that just knowing your neighbor has so many profound impacts on so many different areas of your life, from emergency preparedness to feeling comfortable to let your kids just go outside and play. They don't need to be in a program. They can just go play on the streets, which is how I grew up.
Yeah.
Was just playing on the streets. But parents are so scared now because they're fearful of the other because they don't know the other. So we're trying to do all kinds of programs to get people to know who lives next door to you. How can you help them out? Where's there a place for you? And just giving $500 to people to have a party, the return on our investment is massive for the community. Massive. Yeah.
I actually love my neighborhood.
Yes.
Is one of the best program I've ever actually taken a look at, and even used as well for community building and at some point. But what I really want to dwell more on, what I want to take the conversation even deeper is, do you, for someone who had her neighbor remove the snow for 2 years for her through grief. I have like Bob, who was across the street, came two full winters and cleared our snow. But Bob knew me before,
right?
And so knew my late husband, and he came forth with an open heart and an open hand.
Yes.
But do you, in the Canadian and globally, that is a normal practice?
I know.
Very much so, where in fact, trade is how communities were built.
Yep.
Denise is a doctor. I am maybe an engineer. You would never need to get another engineer because I would do any of your engineering work and you'd be my doctor.
Correct.
And so the carpenter. So there was always a trade exchange, and that's what the counter of I can do myself.
Right.
I can be independent. I'm self-sufficient. Sufficient is the opposite of community. Do you find the two contradict?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has strengths, right? We all have gifts.
Yeah.
We all have a gift to share. Regardless of our current situation, we all have a gift. And trying to leverage each other's gifts is what we should be doing. That's that interdependence that we're looking for. That I might not be great at knitting or crocheting or whatever, and I have a need for that, but you are. So why? I'm not going to struggle and learn how to. Trust me, I'm not going to learn how to. But I can reach out to somebody I do know who could, right? I may not be great at mathematics, but I know somebody who is, that can help tutor my child. There's so many different things out there that we create that interdependency. And if we could just celebrate our strengths and gifts and say, here's what I have to share, or somebody says, hey, did you know you have that as a natural strength? I want to leverage that piece. that would start to create that interdependence and community that I think we're really missing. So, I'm so curious about your journey and how you got to here. Because, I mean, you've obviously evolved through all of this. You've had a journey from being independent by yourself, and then you've gotten to that point where you are reaching out for help and showing a little bit more vulnerability. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and might there be some insights in there for others to learn from?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you say that, two instances, two times in my life, I have felt the storm. What I would really classify as a really challenges. One was when I was 16, because I came to Canada when I was 13, and I was in high school. And I remember my dad used to send me to support me to some money so that I could really pay rent, etc. And I remember me and my sister living together and running out of money.
Wow.
And I remember being expected to be at high school because I was I had exams and whatnot. I didn't have money to take the bus.
Wow.
And I didn't know how precisely to go and find, tickets or where to go, what exactly needed to happen. So I remember it was a 2-story home and there was another tenant in the basement. And I remember having a bike that said free bike on the street. And as much as it's one of my strengths and fondest moments where you actually really have to dig deep not only in survival mode, but also in thinking out of the box, even when you're still very young and you don't have the backing and the support and the nurturing and the things that you need to do. Which I would really touch base later on, because that really, all of that shapes to your next stages in life,
right.
Was taking that bike and starting riding. I mean, we're talking about end of 80s, early 90s, riding that bike to high school.
Yes.
In spring when there's still a little bit of snow on the ground, and learning to push through, if you know what I mean, push through. But what I have actually learned from that experience is that I was physically in a great position to cycle, to take myself to finish my education, to get to that until my next money would be arriving to survive. But take that. At that point, if I knew there was things that I could do or help that I could knock or organizations that I can go and say, I need money for bus.
Right.
I don't have that. I didn't know even what a nonprofit is.
Right.
Per se, at that point. Fast forward, when the situation of the loss of my late husband happened, I actually also, again, had to relearn and figure out what resources that can help me really move or push through that storm to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember dialing to that experience.
Interesting.
Interestingly enough, dialing to that experience and saying, you know what did you do? How did you survive that storm?
Right.
And so, but this one was very different because this one was a mature woman. It was a little bit more wholesome. But believe it or not, there's still resources you don't know they exist because you just never saw yourself in that position. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you hadn't grieved like that before. That was a very raw experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you relate to any instances similar that would really sort of put you under the heat and come out the other side with?
I can, yeah, but often I do it physically.
Yeah.
To your point, it's more physical challenges that I'll give to myself to get to that uncomfortable zone
Yeah.
to see what I'm capable of. But I also think there's this piece where, do I really need to do that all the time? Where I could be actually more emotionally vulnerable and supportive, as opposed to pushing through my independently pushing through. Would it be better to be with other people to help me get through that journey?
Which is learnings now.
Yes.
If I was to redo all of that,
Yes. What would you have done different?
I would definitely give myself a full permission to feel many things. I wouldn't avoid them. I would not apply resilience. I'll stay strong, but I wouldn't avoid and seclude it to be I wouldn't apply strength. That's for sure. I would apply instead vulnerability. But again, it's a fine line because we also have to be cognizant about vulnerability itself when it's not utilized in its right place can break you. So what I mean by that is when I'm vulnerable, I need to make sure that I am vulnerable in the brave spaces that I've either created or was created for me. So that when I fall down, I know either I can come back up or the people around me can support me and pick me up.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? So vulnerability is an emotion that is legitimately heavy.
Absolutely. It's hard. It's very hard in this culture to be vulnerable like that. But if you've created a group around you that will be there to help raise you up, help bring you along, isn't that a better place to be? That you can be your authentic self, be who you naturally are, and those that are around you can support and rise with you.
What I would really love to know is, like, we've talked about it quite a lot. We've covered social isolation, different demographics, CEOs, loneliness. We've talked about a lot, but I wonder, what do you think is the actual solution might look like in terms of like a takeaway action, something that would give an impact? Well, what are your thoughts on how to combat social isolation and loneliness in our communities?
There's lots that we can be doing.
Yeah.
Ourselves as individuals. I recently got to hear a speaker from a company called GenWell, or charity called GenWell.
Mm-hmm.
They're really about social health. They're talking about social health. They're Canadian, and they are really promoting this social health. And he did a super simple exercise when we were in this session.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, most of the time when you go into a meeting, they say, turn your phones off.
Yeah.
He was like, pull your phone out. I want you right now to text somebody who's been on your mind that you have not reached out to in a while, that you really want to make that connection with again. For whatever reason, you've put it off, reach out to them right now. And he gave us 2 minutes to do that. Wow. Do you know everybody in the room? Maybe I shouldn't say that, but most people in the room got a response right away. So happy that you reached out to me. It's been a long time since we chatted. The conversation I had was with a girlfriend from high school. Literally in that 2 minutes, she responded right away. And we had set up a time to go out for coffee in Toronto.
Wow.
And I haven't talked to her in 25 years. But she was on my mind.
She was on your mind, but never really translated into
an action. It was somebody gave me the permission, the space and time, and the challenge to go forward and do that action. And I did it. I'm in a position within my role with the City of Burlington that we are able to do a number of things and to help on preventative healthcare issues. So lots of those things include us creating community hubs. Mm-hmm. And those are spaces and places where if somebody's willing to offer a free program, we'll give them the space for free.
Wow.
naturally occurring in neighborhoods for people to come together to share their talents and their gifts with no barriers, and getting people out there to understand that. I already talked about Love My Neighborhood. Knowing your neighbors is such a profound piece.
Right.
It's a huge piece to your social benefits and how you feel about your social health and about where you live. That starts to create that space and place of belonging. This is where I live. So having programs like Love My Neighborhood or our Community Champions Party or our placemaking initiatives, those are places and spaces that start to bring community together. Because when we do those programs, what we're saying to the community is, yeah, we'll give you this money or we'll help you with this, but you need to come to the table with at least half of your neighborhood signing on that they're prepared to help out. So that naturally creates people having to have to go door to door to talk to their neighbor, breaking down that social barrier. And people are willing to do it. It is people are willing to accept that invitation. And I would say 90% of the time, people are willing to accept that invitation. They are craving and longing for that connection.
Just needs an initiation.
Somebody to go out there. Yeah. So we have a group that we call Community Champions, and that's their job in their neighborhood to go out and rally everybody together. Let's get together. Let's do an outdoor skating rink at our local park. Let's do a piece of public art in this little area. Let's put a bench on the corner. Let's do these little placemaking things, and the city will give us money to do it.
You're saying that in order for these connections to happen in neighborhoods, the municipality is actually paying them to get together.
Correct.
And to throw the party.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very curious about why pay people when all of these connections should be really automated and happening normal, be part of a normal neighborhood behavior.
It's just sad. It's sad. It's sad that you have to do that, but people need an incentive, and a driver to get there. We want to be an enabling force to bring people together, and we know that an investment in prevention right now, especially around social connection, is going to save in the healthcare dollars down the road. So we know that investing in this connection now will have a profound impact on what will be the inevitable impact on our healthcare system with hospitalizations and long-term care. Rather not invest in that and let's pay for it now. And it's a minor investment. For a major return for what could happen in the future.
Wow.
Especially with an aging population and the impact that it's having already on our healthcare system. Imagine if we just diverted some of that money into these preventative programs that encourage people to know their neighbors and to support each other.
I mean, I get it. It's all, there's also cost associated, obviously, and sort of really uplifting that and making it easier and accessible. Love My Neighborhood. Can it become more than one community that can come together? I'm just very curious about how it opens up. Is that neighborhood specific, or does it really have a connection to other neighborhoods to come and join? Is it the whole street, or anybody can come in? Or
ideally it's your street. Keep it simple to start off with. I agree with you. We are seeing neighborhoods come together in bigger and bigger ways, more profound interconnection. But the piece that we find starts to go missing when we do the bigger pieces is that human to human connection. So the piece of keeping it at grassroots seems to be really resonating with people. Although bigger is fun and you can do a lot more animation when you go bigger, you sometimes lose that interconnected piece. But what we find is once people know their neighbors and they start to get more comfortable back in social life,
right,
it does transcend into other areas around volunteerism or areas of interest. They start to build their community again.
Wow.
It's just that one simple have a street party and how it can grow and build is profound. So we're fortunate in Burlington, being part of Halton Region. Our health department has done some metrics with us to show, Burlington has this program around connection, and they'll do the health metrics to say, our residents feel more that they belong? Do they have that connection? Do they have that sense of belongingness? And Burlington is above the rest of the region. And I would like to argue that the programs that we're doing are related to community development is partly why we're doing that, why we're seeing this sense of belongingness increase in Burlington. We have a long ways to go. There's no doubt about it, but we're starting to build the momentum and want to keep that going. Because we know that this is just going to help people in the long run.
I'm curious about if you had to do some team building in terms of learning about what other global communities are doing, i.e. the Blue Zone and etc. Like, would you like to take us into how the social connectedness that we're bringing to locally is somewhat a global phenomena that's incredible. That does an amazingly well in other places in the world. And I know, can you talk a little bit about that? And
we've had quite a journey in Burlington around that, around this. With my mentor being Jim Dyers from City of Seattle, when he first talked about building neighborhood, I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And him being the first director of neighborhood for the City of Seattle. And getting to the point where where neighborhoods are building multi-million-dollar community centers,
still continue
to do that. When he spoke of his journey, that just set me off onto a whole new pattern. So that's what started this journey for me. And with Burlington, was really learning the Seattle way and how they did that through neighborhood. And as things have evolved and layered on, you're right. We brought Blue Zones in. We brought Blue Zones to Burlington before it was a big thing.
Yeah.
We brought it in before the pandemic. We wanted to be the first community in Canada to be a Blue Zone community. And what really resonates with us is that one of the 9 essential pieces of Blue Zones for longevity is social connection.
And tea.
Well, they actually say wine, but that's okay.
Okay. Sure.
But tea, yes. And it is having a social connection and a connection to a faith or an organization base. That has led to longevity for people. And it's not just that people are living longer, they're living longer, healthier in those communities, right? So the whole Blue Zone premise is, where are the most centurions living in the world? And they identified the zones. And what were the common factors in that? And there's quite a few things: eating a plant-based diet, having social connections, wine at 5. There's a whole plethora of the 9 things that Blue Zones say create for longevity. But the one that really resonates with us is the social connection and the importance of having a group that you can rely on to be a part of, to validate who I am as a human. The Blue Zones has been profound. And then most recently, as I mentioned, GenWell is also promoting the social health and the social connection. They're talking about it in the workplace. They're talking about it in your neighborhood. They're talking about it with the organizations they associate with. They're talking about it for all ages and stages of life. The importance of social health is it has an immense impact on physical health.
For those who don't know about Blue Zone, would you shed some light? What exactly is Blue Zone?
So years ago, National Geographic authored or commissioned a report to be done around Blue Zones. They wanted to find out where the most people that are centurions, people who are 100 years and older, live. And so Dan Buettner went all around the world investigating this through lots of records, lots of conversations to find out where are the Blue Zones in the world. And he identified, I'm going to go off my top of my head, but about 5 of them in Okinawa, Costa Rica, one in the States, anyways, I'm going to butcher it all.
Yeah, 5 of them.
But they're all over the world. And what he found was there are 9 commonalities between all of them. There's a reason people are living to be 100 plus years old in these environments.
And healthy.
And they're not, so I was just going to say, they're not like sitting in a retirement home. They're actually active participants in community. They are out socializing every day. I think of the ones in Greece where they're hiking up and down mountains every single day. Like, they are just super active individuals, and they don't age in place. They're actually very vibrant, contributing people in our community. Very unlike
there's no
the
such
North
thing as
American,
retired home,
right,
per se,
or living in a isolated building that is dedicated to people of my age. They actually integrate family together. There is no place for elders. They are part of your house and part of your community.
Very interesting. So I'm getting really excited about, is there a structure as part of the solution? Is there a structure that you would say maybe would have an impact in the long run, where the way our communities are developed or built around, i.e. speaking about things like accessibility, speaking about place of work and place of shopping, and communities that are sustainable. Now I know only because I've read a lot about the Blue Zone, and I'm really enticed to learn your perspective in terms of what can the future generations take away from that.
I think there's a huge movement around what we deem as complete communities, or the 15-minute community, or whatever the language you want to use, in that people don't have to really leave their neighborhoods to get the services and what they require. I don't need to take a car to get groceries. I can just walk to the grocery store. Not only is the walking physically active, I'm likely to bump into a neighbor along the way.
So I'm automatically connected.
Right. You're automatically connecting. Yeah. I don't have to drive my child across the city for swimming lessons if the pool is in my neighborhood and we can walk right to the pool. So you start to build community in the built form as well. So there's the social side, which is, in my opinion, probably a little bit easier to build right now, is to get that social connection going.
Yeah.
And have the built forms, ideally with our planning staff and the planners, to create those complete communities.
Having sustainable and connection in the heart.
Correct. Yes. And can I live within my neighborhood? Is there a grocery store? Can I get access to fresh food within my neighborhood in a walking distance way? Once we kind of build those kind of structures, you're likely to create that moving forward.
Because that again is some of the conversations we've been I hear firsthand when I meet folks for tea, is the inability. There's only 24 hours of the day. And as a Canadian culture, we are already overly busy between work-life balance, which we often talk about. All of it calls out for moving from one space to another space. And so staying connected with different communities, at some point, if I don't have the time, it becomes a luxury. What would be your takeaway for the reviewers for sort of not an action plan, but what would sum as a solution or a tool that people can use, or an understanding?
Super simple.
Yeah.
Go knock on your neighbor's door and say hi. Introduce yourself. Bring them, for us, it's the festive time of year right now. Take a card over. Whatever it is, go knock on somebody's door and say hi. And as uncomfortable as that might be, the benefits to your health and well-being are immense. Wow. Simple. Even as simple as that text I said earlier. Send the text. Reach out to somebody you've been longing to talk to. Reach out. Simple stuff. Simple. So it's very interesting. I mean, as simple as it sounds, there's still this reservation of like, what if? Yeah. You know, who am I walking to? Like, how would I really dig deep to get into that space where I don't want to use the word brave, but there is a bravery. Absolutely.
So
it takes courage.
And you're courageously knocking somebody's door.
Being vulnerable.
And then you could get like hello, come on in for a cup of tea, or like you could get, I'm a busy, who are,
Yeah.
how can I start that? Like, what would you recommend?
Don't even knock on the door then, just leave the card.
So simplified.
Simplified. If that's too much for you, just leave a card. You don't need to have the social engagement right away if you're that nervous. But you're starting to make those connections. I often look at the bus stop, like the school bus, for the kids during the day.
Mm-hmm.
What a great opportunity. Do you know those other parents that are standing there waiting with you? Have you chatted with them?
Mm.
Have you made that connection? Going to the park with the kids.
Yeah.
Again, super simple. And anybody going to a park, I actually find parks are probably the best connecting spaces that we have.
I agree with you.
A, it's outdoors, and B, it's just welcoming for everyone. Everyone benefits from being in a park. Sit on a bench and chat. Say hi. It is those casuals. So there's that element of the neighbor connection for sure, but there's also people you see in your daily routine. Although you may not know their name, you have a sense of belonging as well. It's the eye-to-eye contact.
Or even the humanness.
Yes.
The fact that you
100%.
both breathe in the same air.
Yep. So whether it's your barista that you see in the morning every day and they just know you by your order number or your
How you take your latte.
how you take it. Or if it's like, there's a woman I see every morning on my walk. Every single morning. I see her every day. And she'll make a comment to me if I'm late on my schedule, if I'm early on my schedule. But the fact that I know that she knows I'm out there and I know she's going to be there, there is a human connection. Complete stranger, don't even know them. Don't know her name, but I know that she is recognizing the humanness in me and I'm recognizing the humanness in her.
And you've seen them pretty much every morning.
Yep.
So
Don't
you
know her
are
name,
connected either way. You
Don't
just
know her
have
name. But she's there. And that's what's important.
and she's human.
Yep.
Wow.
Like I said before, that eye-to-eye contact, profound. Changes my physiology every time.
Wow.
And what are you doing, Osob? What is something you can do to...
My take on that is just always be the listening ear. Be in space where if spaces are not welcoming, find out how to make them more welcoming. Of things we always talked about, that removing the cultural sensitivity piece, like assuming that everybody loves tea is big assumption.
that
right?
Is, yes.
Or everybody wants to have a glass of wine is a big assumption.
Yep.
So for me, where I really get, what I really would love to do about is move the loneliness from a thing that needs to be fixed to something that we just need to be in tune with, listen to, and sort of identify. And then when we know about social isolation and when we know that it's just a signal, it's not the end of the world, it's a thing that needs to be addressed like everything else, then it's providing that space of a listening ear, a welcoming smile,